The Interstellar Tactical Academy floated in the void like a monument to organized violence, its crystalline structure wrapped around asteroid Prometheus 7 in a demonstration of what happened when military minds got access to unlimited budgets and a complete absence of architectural restraint. The Academy's designers had apparently decided that subtle intimidation was for amateurs, opting instead for a facility that looked like it could personally declare war on 3 solar systems and win before lunch. Founded by the Galactic Defense Consortium as a training ground for elite military specialists, the Academy had spent the last 2 centuries perfecting the fine art of turning already dangerous beings into weapons of mass destruction with official certifications. The admissions process was legendarily brutal, accepting only candidates who demonstrated exceptional combat potential, strategic brilliance, and what the recruitment materials diplomatically termed aggressive problem-solving capabilities. What the brochures failed to mention was that the Academy operated on a rigid caste system that would have made medieval feudalism look progressive. At the apex sat the Omega-class species, beings evolved on worlds where survival required creativity in the application of extreme violence. Below them ranked the alpha predators, creatures that had simply overwhelmed their homeworld ecosystems through conventional superiority. At the bottom, barely worthy of institutional acknowledgement, lingered the beta classifications, species that had achieved spaceflight through cooperation, tool-making, and other activities that proper predators considered embarrassingly unsporting. Maya Chen-Rodriguez occupied a dormitory module specifically designed for beta-class cadets, which meant it featured reinforced walls to prevent unfortunate accidents when alpha-class students felt like practicing their intimidation techniques. The quarters were functional rather than comfortable, equipped with basic life support, a study terminal that randomly malfunctioned when she needed it most, and a sealed habitat module that had sparked considerable speculation among her fellow students. The habitat module sat in the corner like a metallic enigma, roughly the size of a large storage container and equipped with environmental controls that suggested its contents required very specific atmospheric conditions. A feeding slot allowed for nutrient delivery without opening the main chamber, and the occasional sounds emanating from within had generated betting pools among the other cadets regarding what exactly the human kept in there. Maya herself presented a fascinating study in contradictions that baffled the Academy's psychological evaluation protocols. Standing barely 5.5 feet tall, with the kind of build that suggested regular exercise rather than genetic optimization for combat, she possessed an unsettling calm that seemed impervious to the various intimidation tactics her classmates regularly employed. Her most notable characteristic was an apparent addiction to earth coffee, which she consumed with the dedication of someone practicing a religious ritual. The Academy's current crop of alpha-class elite included some genuinely impressive specimens of evolutionary overachievement. Zephyros represented the Aryan Dominion, a species that resembled what would happen if someone crossed a bird of prey with a fighter jet and gave it delusions of grandeur. His 12-foot wingspan cast shadows that suggested approaching death, while his talons could shred through starship hull plating with the casual efficiency of someone opening mail. Standing alongside him was Brutax of the Titan Confederation, a mountain of living armor whose species had evolved on a world where the concept of overkill was considered a suggestion rather than a warning. 8 feet of overlapping biometallic plates covered a frame that weighed roughly as much as a small vehicle, and his natural weapons included retractable blade arms that could cut through molecular bonds at the atomic level. The third member of their self-appointed leadership council was Nixera, a shadow stalker from the umbral reaches whose species had perfected the art of existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. She could phase through solid matter, bend light around herself for perfect camouflage, and possessed the charming ability to literally steal the life force from her victims through direct contact. These 3 had formed what they called the Apex Squadron, an unofficial organization dedicated to maintaining proper hierarchical standards within the Academy's student body. Their methods of enforcement varied from psychological pressure to carefully orchestrated training accidents that removed unworthy elements from the program. Maya's presence in their elite institution represented everything they found objectionable about the galaxy's current trajectory toward inclusivity and species equality. Humans, according to their extensive research, were a beta-minus species at best, having achieved space travel through cooperative effort rather than conquest. Their homeworld apparently lacked any significant predators, their physical capabilities were laughably limited, and their combat philosophy emphasized tools and teamwork over individual superiority. The human continues to contaminate our learning environment, Zephyros announced during one of their regular strategy sessions, his voice carrying the harmonic qualities that made his species natural leaders. Her presence undermines the Academy's core principles. Brutax's response rumbled through the metallic corridors like approaching thunder. Indeed. The other Beta-class students looked to her as an example. This encourages dangerous delusions of adequacy among inferior species. Nixera's contribution came from somewhere between dimensions, her words carrying the echo of spaces that existed only in theoretical mathematics. The instructors show her unwarranted consideration. This suggests weakness in the Academy's traditional values. Their solution to the Maya problem would need to be subtle, elegant, and completely deniable. Fortunately, the Academy's curriculum included a final examination that provided perfect cover for eliminating problematic elements from the student body. The graduation hunt represented the Academy's oldest and most sacred tradition, a final test that separated true predators from pretenders through practical application of survival skills. Students were deployed to hostile environments where they would face real dangers while completing mission objectives that tested their combat effectiveness, strategic thinking, and ability to thrive in conditions where failure meant death. This year's examination would take place on Terminus 9, an abandoned colony world that had been evacuated after the local ecosystem proved more aggressive than initial surveys suggested. The planet featured a charming combination of predatory flora, unstable weather patterns, and environmental hazards that made survival challenging even for well-equipped teams. The mission parameters were elegantly simple. Survive for 48 hours while eliminating designated prey targets distributed across the planet's surface. Success required not only personal survival, but also the completion of objectives that would test strategic planning, resource management, and combat effectiveness under stress. What the official briefings didn't mention was that the Apex Squadron had volunteered to serve as environmental hazards for this year's exercise, with special authorization to eliminate any students they deemed unworthy of Academy certification. The paperwork was properly filed, the protocols were technically legitimate, and the whole arrangement provided perfect cover for removing the human contamination from their elite institution. Maya received her deployment assignment with the same mild interest she displayed toward everything else, reviewing the mission parameters while sipping coffee from her ever-present thermal mug. The target zone included the ruins of the original colony settlement, an area rich in both cover and opportunities for ambush. Interesting location, she commented to her equipment officer, a nervous centurion who handled human requests with the cautious efficiency of someone dealing with potentially unstable explosives. Will the environmental controls accommodate my companion's needs? The equipment officer consulted his datapad with obvious relief at having a technical question to address. The atmospheric composition is compatible with Earth standard fauna. Temperature ranges may require thermal regulation for smaller organisms. Excellent, Maya said, making a note in her planning materials. Chaos gets cranky when it's cold. The transport to Terminus 9 proceeded with the tense efficiency of a military operation conducted by people who knew that at least some of the participants wouldn't be returning. Maya spent the journey reading a technical manual on atmospheric processing, while her sealed habitat module sat securely strapped in the cargo bay, its environmental systems humming with quiet purpose. Her fellow students maintained careful distance, partly due to the Academy's social hierarchies and partly because of the increasingly ominous sounds emanating from her companion's container. The feeding schedule she maintained suggested something with high metabolic requirements and carnivorous preferences, though the specific nature of her pet remained a carefully guarded secret. The drop zone was a wasteland of broken dreams and evolutionary hostility, where the remains of human optimism lay scattered among vegetation that had apparently taken the colonist's departure as a personal insult. The abandoned settlement squatted in a valley between two ridges, its prefabricated structures slowly being reclaimed by plant life that seemed particularly enthusiastic about demonstrating why this world had been evacuated. Maya established her base camp in the ruins of what had once been the colony's administrative center, a choice that provided both cover and access to the settlement's abandoned infrastructure. She set up her equipment with methodical precision, assembling a camp that looked more like a comfortable reading nook than a military position. The centerpiece of her arrangement was an elaborate coffee brewing station, complete with precision heating elements, grinders calibrated to molecular specifications, and water filtration systems that could have served a small laboratory. She treated the setup with the reverence typically reserved for religious artifacts or explosive devices. Her habitat module occupied a position of honor near the camp's center, its environmental systems maintaining whatever conditions her mysterious companion required. The sounds from within had grown more frequent during the journey, suggesting anticipation or perhaps hunger. The Apex Squadron positioned themselves with strategic precision around the valley, their superior technology and natural abilities allowing them to coordinate their approach through encrypted communications. Their plan was elegantly simple. Contain the human within the settlement ruins, eliminate her companion whatever it might be, and complete the kill with methods that would appear consistent with local wildlife hazards. Zephyros took position on the northern ridge, his aerial capabilities providing overwatch and the option for devastating diving attacks. Brutax established himself at the valley's eastern approach, where his massive frame could block any escape attempts, while his natural weaponry could punch through whatever defenses the human might have prepared. Nixera phased through the southern perimeter, her dimensional abilities allowing her to appear anywhere within the settlement without warning. They struck at what their tactical analysis suggested was the optimal moment, late afternoon, when fatigue and decreasing visibility would compound their advantages. Their approach was textbook perfect, coordinated with military precision and executed with the confidence of predators who had never encountered serious resistance. They found Maya sitting on a broken section of colony wall, calmly brewing coffee with the focused attention of someone conducting a delicate scientific experiment. Her portable brewing setup occupied a flat section of rubble, steam rising from various vessels in an aromatic symphony that spoke of proper bean selection and temperature control. Human, Zephyros announced, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to immediate compliance. Your academy career ends here. Maya looked up from her coffee preparation with mild interest, as if he'd commented on the weather rather than delivered a death sentence. Oh, hello. I was wondering when you'd arrive. I've been monitoring your approach for the last 20 minutes. Brutax stepped into view, his massive frame casting shadows that suggested approaching apocalypse. You show remarkable calm for someone facing extinction. Should I be panicking? Maya asked, genuinely curious. She returned her attention to the coffee brewing process, adjusting temperature controls with the precision of someone conducting a chemistry experiment. I mean, academically speaking, what would be the appropriate emotional response to this situation? Nixera materialized from the shadow between dimensions, her form shifting through probability, states that hurt, to observe directly. Fear would be traditional. Pleading is also acceptable. We are prepared to accept either. Maya nodded thoughtfully, testing the coffee's temperature with a specialized probe. I appreciate the flexibility, but I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. Fear has never been particularly useful in my experience, and pleading seems like poor time management. The three aliens exchanged glances that managed to convey confusion across entirely different evolutionary frameworks. Beta-class species were supposed to demonstrate appropriate submission when confronted by their evolutionary superiors. This human's casual disregard for proper predator-prey dynamics suggested either psychological damage or dangerous delusions. Perhaps, Zephyros suggested, spreading his wings in a display designed to trigger instinctive terror responses, you fail to grasp the severity of your situation. Oh no, I understand perfectly, Maya assured him, pouring coffee into a ceramic mug with the care typically reserved for handling unstable isotopes. 3 Alpha-class predators have coordinated an assassination attempt disguised as a training exercise. Very professional work, actually. The paperwork must have been extensive. Brutax's blade arms extended with the sound of metal tasting air. Then you understand that resistance is futile. Futile is such a strong word, Maya mused, taking an experimental sip of her coffee. The aroma carried hints of chocolate and honey, with undertones that spoke of proper roasting techniques and beans selected by people who understood their craft. I prefer to think of it as unnecessary. From within her habitat module came a sound that started as a low rumble and escalated into something that suggested mechanical processes being applied to organic materials with extreme prejudice. The module's environmental systems began cycling through what appeared to be pre-activation sequences. Your pet, Nixero observed, her dimensional sensors detecting energy patterns that didn't align with any known fauna classifications, appears agitated. Chaos isn't really a pet, Maya corrected, pressing a release sequence on the Habitat module's control panel. He's more of a professional colleague. We have a working relationship based on mutual respect and premium food service. The module's primary door opened with a soft hiss of equalizing atmosphere. What emerged defied immediate classification, though observers with zoological training might have recognized elements reminiscent of Earth's Tasmanian devil filtered through the lens of genetic engineering with a complete absence of ethical restraints. The creature stood roughly 3 feet tall, covered in coarse black fur marked with distinctive white patches, and possessed the general body plan of something evolution had specifically designed to make everyone else's existence more complicated. Its most notable features were teeth that looked like they'd been commissioned from someone with both extensive knowledge of material science and a deeply personal grudge against the concept of mercy. The muscular development suggested strength ratios that violated several laws of physics, while its eyes held the concentrated malevolence of a species that had spent millions of years perfecting the art of not caring about consequences. "Meet Chaos," Maya said fondly, scratching behind his ears with obvious affection. He's a genetically enhanced Tasmanian devil with modifications for space travel and improved combat effectiveness. The enhancement process was quite extensive: increased muscle density, reinforced skeletal structure, enhanced metabolic efficiency, and what the geneticists called optimized aggressive response patterns. The 3 alien hunters stared at the creature with a growing realization that their tactical assessment might have contained significant errors. "It's quite small," Brutax observed, though his voice carried less certainty than before. "Tasmanian devils don't really subscribe to size as a limiting factor," Maya explained conversationally. "They are what you might call apex predators with attitude problems. Specifically, they believe they can kill anything that moves, regardless of size, weaponry, or strategic considerations." Chaos was now conducting what appeared to be a systematic security assessment of the immediate area, his nose working constantly as he catalogued scents and filed them under categories that included threat, food, and threat that might also be food if approached correctly. Zephyros attempted to reassert control of the situation through superior firepower, activating a plasma projector that could reduce armored vehicles to their component atoms. One creature cannot stand against 3 academy-trained hunters. "Probably not," Maya agreed, settling back with her coffee to watch the proceedings with the detached interest of someone observing a nature documentary. "But I should mention that Chaos has some very specific behavioral traits that might be relevant to your current situation." Chaos had completed his initial assessment and fixed his attention on Zephyros with the focused intensity of someone who'd found exactly what they'd been looking for. His lips pulled back to reveal a dental arrangement that suggested evolution had been taking design suggestions from Nightmare Fuel. "Such as?" Nixera asked, though her dimensional sensors were already detecting probability cascades that spoke of approaching statistical impossibilities. "Well," Maya said, taking another sip of coffee, "enhanced Tasmanian devils are immune to most energy weapons due to their modified cellular structure. Their reaction time operates at roughly 3 times normal mammalian speeds. And they possess what the enhancement team called tactical problem-solving abilities combined with a complete absence of self-preservation instincts." Zephyros fired his plasma projector, sending coherent energy that should have reduced chaos to his constituent elements. The beam struck the small creature directly and dispersed around him like water around a stone, absorbed by fur that seemed to drink energy and convert it into kinetic potential. Chaos tilted his head slightly, as if considering whether this qualified as an attack or merely an amusing party trick, then launched himself at Zephyros with the fluid grace of physics, having a nervous breakdown. The aerial predator attempted evasive maneuvers that had served his species well for millions of years of evolutionary success. Chaos adjusted his trajectory mid-flight with movements that suggested he'd been taking lessons from guided missiles, latching onto Zephyros's wing with the tenacious grip of someone who'd found their life's purpose. "Fascinating," Maya murmured, watching the encounter with academic interest. "See how he targets the flight surfaces first? Enhanced Tasmanian devils are remarkably strategic. They disable mobility before engaging with vital areas." Zephyrosa's shrieks carried across the valley in frequencies that spoke of pain transcending species barriers. His attempts to dislodge Chaos succeeded only in providing the small predator with better leverage for his systematic destruction of wing membranes. Brutax charged forward, abandoning ranged tactics for the close-quarters combat that his species had perfected across geological time. His blade arms swept toward Chaos in arcs that should have reduced the creature to a fine mist dispersed across several square meters. Chaos released his grip on Zephyros and flowed around Brutax's attacks like liquid violence, each movement precise and economical. The enhanced creature's claws, reinforced with carbon diamond matrices, parted the alien's biometallic armor, like tissue paper under garden shears. The modifications were quite comprehensive, Maya noted, as Brutax's roars of pain and disbelief echoed through the ruins. Enhanced strength, improved reflexes, and what the geneticists called creative problem-solving in high-stress combat situations. Chaos can now cut through most known materials and possesses tactical intelligence that borders on prescient. Nyxera attempted to use her dimensional abilities to escape, phasing between reality states and patterns that should have made her untouchable by purely physical threats. Chaos paused in his systematic dismantling of Brutax, regarded the phasing alien with the look of someone who'd been presented with an interesting puzzle, and somehow followed her through dimensions that weren't supposed to admit corporeal entities. "Oh my," Maya said mildly, as Nyxera's screams emerged from spaces between spaces. "I hadn't realized he could do that." The enhancement process must have been more thorough than the documentation suggested. The sounds that followed needed no translation across species barriers. They spoke the universal language of evolutionary confidence being aggressively corrected by something with strong opinions about proper respect and the efficient application of dental work to soft tissues. When the educational demonstration concluded, Chaos returned to Maya's side, sat down with the satisfied air of someone whose workday had exceeded expectations, and began cleaning his claws with the methodical attention of a craftsman maintaining precision tools. "Good boy," Maya said, producing a premium treat from her pack. "Very professional work." The Academy rescue team arrived 12 hours later, following standard protocols for overdue examination participants. They discovered Maya reading a technical manual on terraforming while Chaos napped in a patch of alien sunlight that seemed particularly well-suited to post-exercise relaxation. The remains of the Apex Squadron were distributed across the settlement in configurations that suggested they'd encountered something with advanced degrees in both anatomy and creative destruction. The forensic team's preliminary report mentioned phrases like unprecedented tissue displacement and anatomically improbable damage patterns. "What transpired here?" demanded Colonel Vexthari, the Academy's Director of Student Assessment. Maya looked up from her manual with mild surprise. "Training exercise, as scheduled. The environmental hazards proved more challenging than anticipated." The Colonel's multiple sensory organs focused on Chaos, who chose that moment to stretch and yawn, revealing dental work that looked like it had been designed by someone with both advanced engineering degrees and serious psychological issues. "That creature is your registered companion." "Chaos?" "Yes, he's from Earth. Lovely planet, very peaceful. It's known throughout the galaxy for its harmonious ecosystem and gentle fauna." The Colonel made extensive notes on his assessment pad, cross-referenced them with the Academy's species classification database, and arrived at conclusions that would require immediate updates to several xenobiological textbooks. "There appear to have been significant errors in our evaluation of human homeworld classifications," he announced carefully. "Oh?" Maya asked politely. "Earth has been reclassified as a Class 15 nightmare world. Humans are being elevated from Beta Class to Omega Class Predator status, effective immediately. Your companion species will require a new classification category entirely." Maya considered this while Chaos investigated the rescue team's equipment with the professional interest of someone conducting a security evaluation. "That seems reasonable," she agreed. "Will this affect my graduation status?" The Academy's new policies regarding human students included mandatory briefings for all faculty on proper interaction protocols with Omega-class predators and their companions. Surprisingly, incidents involving humans dropped to zero within days of the new guidelines being implemented. Maya completed her studies with unprecedented honors, though some suspected this reflected the Academy's universal desire to ensure her rapid and peaceful departure from their institution. Her final thesis on interspecies combat psychology became required reading for all strategic planning courses. The Academy's recruitment materials were quietly updated to reflect new understandings about predator classifications and the dangers of assuming anything based on species appearance or apparent docility. The revised brochures included a disclaimer: classification systems are guidelines only. Individual results may vary significantly. The Academy accepts no responsibility for assumptions regarding any species' combat potential based on preliminary assessment data. Maya graduated summa cum laude and accepted a position with Galactic Defense as a specialist in xenobiological threat assessment. Her consultancy services became highly sought after, particularly for missions involving planets classified as seemingly harmless. Chaos retired from active educational demonstrations and spent his later years as the galaxy's most effective deterrent to interspecies conflict. His reputation spread through military channels with the efficiency of a well-designed virus, carrying the message that some worlds produced dangerous predators, but Earth produced something far more hazardous: dangerous predators with excellent manners and really good coffee. And somewhere in the vast cosmic joke that connected all sentient life, the universe continued to demonstrate its sense of humor, proving once again that the most effective killers were often the ones polite enough to offer you a perfectly brewed beverage while they decided whether your continued existence aligned with their schedule. The coffee, as always, was exceptional.